All right, then I think we are ready to go. Uh, how are you today, Chris?
I'm doing well, thank you. Driving through Montana.
Oh, that's nice. What part of Montana are you driving through now?
We just took a stop at the Painted Canyon in Theodore Roosevelt National Park. So we just took a look at that and hopped back in the car. We're in the middle of a 14-hour drive. So that's why I have to drive while I talk to you. It's a long drive.
Completely understand. Don't worry about it. If you need to hop off for any reason while you're driving, that's totally fine.
Thank you.
So, um, I wanted to talk to you first and foremost about your current tour. Now, you have a lot of dates. You already have done a lot of different locations. It looks like you've done uh, everywhere from Palm Beach to Kansas City to Memphis. It looks like your next one is going to be on tomorrow, actually, in Missoula. Now,
That's correct.
is there any place that you've done tours before? Are there any places that you really enjoy touring that you would go back to specifically in regards to your touring for your previous music?
Well, I mean, over the years, I've kind of like found some places that are maybe you might consider them secondary cities in the U.S. Places like Denver and Tampa, Philadelphia, and Boston. We had great shows in Syracuse and Milwaukee, and I never quite know what's going to happen. But I like going back to places where people like to come out to see me. Um, so I'll go anywhere anybody wants to see me. And you have to play a lot of shows to get from the preferred shows from one to the next. You have to play a lot of shows in between those shows, and those shows can be sometimes surprisingly awesome and sometimes disappointments. And you take it all in stride. But I love the places where I'm still clicking, especially Denver. Denver is kind of like my most popular location. I have no idea why. Um, might have something to do with cannabis. But I think I have a lot of fans there, and I love playing there. And I've always played the marquee, and have always enjoyed that experience. And so I really like Denver a lot. But like I said, I like going anywhere where people like me.
That's great. I mean, that's what's really important here is you need to go where people enjoy you and the music that you make and just the person that you are. And
Yeah.
that's really what the key factor is in
I
all of
think
that.
I've created a relationship with a lot of these concert goers because they've been coming to see me since the middle aughts and since 2005, since I first started touring. So they've been watching me perform for 15 years, and some of them have seen like almost 15 shows. I've had people that have come to the shows this tour that have seen me 20 times. And that's crazy to me because I never would have seen a band more than once growing up. But I think I make it interesting enough and fun enough that they come back for more.
That's great. So you have loyal enough fans that will go to these shows multiple times. That is
Yeah,
great. That's hard to find with any performer, let alone yeah, any performer. That's insane. And I'm glad that you have those people that are that loyal to you and your music.
yeah. I think there's just not a lot like it. So yeah, and they can feel kind of a kindred. Feel like I'm a kindred spirit because we're very similar, and there's just not a lot of shows like mine, and people don't tour as often as I do. People don't tour for as long as I do because oftentimes they'll get dropped by their labels or they'll burn out or something like that. Whereas I kind of keep going. So It's just kind of a consistent thing that lots of nerds come to depend upon.
That's great. I mean, that's awesome. Speaking of the tour, though, you're labeling this as the last tour. And I just wanted to know, from what I can understand, or from what I've read and heard about, it sounds like a majority of the reason that this is the last tour is because you really want to be spending more time with your son. Is that correct?
Well, it's not so much that my son's with me on this tour. So we're spending more time together than I've ever spent with him or my father ever spent with me. It's a hardcore bonding session. But I think that it's just we'll see what happens is what I tell fans because they ask me every night, is this really the last tour? I think a lot of them are looking at this like a Kiss tour or an Eagles tour where they say it's the last one and then come back. And I think it all depends on what happens in the future. I live in LA. I'm trying to get back into animation, but LA is a very difficult place to find footing. And I have already have this history with animation, but I ran away from it for several different reasons. And now I'm trying to come back into it so I can be a little bit more stationary. And I'm a single father, and I have this kid I take care of, and so all year long, it's just the focus is school and making sure everything's really consistent for him and everything's very routine for him. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to like get on a plane, go to a show, or go start touring. And so touring is stopped during the fall and the spring when I would normally tour, and I've shifted it to summer. I was just waiting for COVID to end, and so we were able to get out. My first show was on the night school got out, and we get back 1 week before school starts up, and I just filled it with every date I could. Um, and whether or not this is my last tour remains to be seen. I don't want it to end, and I won't stop because I on a new job in LA, and we'll see what happens with that. If nothing happens, and as it often does for so many people that come out to LA to chase their dreams, there might be more tours and there might be more shows. I'll definitely be doing one-offs and making albums still, so there's no like official retirement for me. But we just kind of have to see how it goes.
Yeah, well, I wish you the best of luck with your new job. I hope that it's one that really sticks. Um, Speaking of, you said that you're trying to get back into animation. You were a big part of early Adult Swim. You were in C Lab. You were in a lot of pilots as well, such as Welcome to Eltingville and the Cheyenne Cinnamon pilot. But I think the big thing that a lot of people must recognize you from, or a good amount of people recognize you from, is of course your multiple characters from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, that being MC Pants, Brittle, Sirloin. So tell me a little bit about your, because from what I can tell, you've been in about 6, 7 episodes total, plus the movie. And I guess what I'm trying to wonder is you have ingrained your mind into a lot of these Aqua Teen fans that you show up so many times in these episodes, which is something that's not very often for a lot of characters that aren't in the main 4. So I guess really, what was your relationship like with Dave, Matt, and the crew of the show? And what does it continue to be like? Because you were recently called back to do an Aquadunk side piece.
Dave was the one who discovered me at Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, where I was just a guy at the bar hanging out. And he was friends with a girl who I ran the box office with, and I worked in the box office at that theater to pay for classes, improv classes, and so he gave me his business card with Space Ghost on it the night he met me. I ended up working for C Lab, But Dave and I always wanted to work together. We became once I moved to Atlanta, which I never thought I'd do, and I said to him that night, I can't see myself living in Atlanta. But once I moved there with C Lab, he and I became friends, and we go out to movies and go have burritos at Elmire, and we always kind of wanted to do something together. He auditioned me for several different villains, the Leprechauns, Moth Monster Man, and then finally they just wrote something specifically for me, I think, and it was a great experience. I think I was still at C Lab when I recorded the first episode, and then they continued to write episodes for me when I transferred over to William Street proper and like was actually in house where they made Aqua Teen and actually became an animator for Aqua Teen. I was head animator on C Lab as well as doing voice work and writing jokes and writing songs. And so I did a lot of props for them, and you know, if Danzig needed the house covered in blood, I would cover everything in blood, and so I was drawing a lot of stuff for them. I think the first thing they asked me to do was to draw the pop-up ads for the internet episode, and you know, we got along great, and it was a great relationship. And they put me in the movie and the video game, and brought me back for side pieces, and you know, it was they were very excited about me in the beginning, and then I think Adult Swim in general kind of cooled their heels. Is that the expression? Once they saw that I had
Yeah.
this side hustle of being MC Chris, and you know, I had this focus, and I started building fans, and I think I think they preferred like discovering me and having me just be this in-house secret rather than somebody who was like kind of making a business on the side, which is at the time something that nobody did. Nobody did any of the things that I was doing, like making their own albums and putting them out, and having a website and building a fan base. And I think that might have detracted a little bit from, you know, my my reoccurring appearances. But there were so many, more than I think other villains get. Maybe the Mooninites might be up there. But for the most part, you really don't see repeat appearances from anybody. But I think because MCP Pants always gets reincarnated and never dies, it was always kind of left open to having more adventures or more plots on his part, more schemes. And it was really great to do the side pieces because I hadn't done anything with them for like 8 years. I also played Carl when he's a kid. So that was like the last thing I did was Carl as a kid. And then I wrote a song for their 100th episode. But I hadn't done MCP Pants in a really long time. I think sometimes they feel like they love working with new talent, love working with new comics and new voices, and they like new stuff. I guess I got kind of played out by not only being somebody who was in house, who was an animator and a writer, just like that never happened before. I don't know if it's happened since, where somebody who actually worked at Cartoon Network was involved in the show to such an extent, except for maybe Andy Merrill and Brack. But you know, you just didn't see somebody who worked at the company actually taking part in the shows. Usually, it was them bringing celebrities in, and so I think they're always eager to work with new people, and they felt maybe with MCP Pants they maybe it had run its course. But I think the fans and I both agree that like it's something that can kind of perpetually continue, just because con artists are always something that we are encountering in life, and the stories never end. Um, but yeah, so they made this new episode for side pieces, and it was a great experience. It was just me, and I wrote a new song for them, and it was great. It was a great like talking to them again and writing back and forth, and you know, so much of the industry has to do with visibility. So if I like shut myself in and just write rap albums and tour and live my life for a long time without really being in the William Street building, they're just never going to see me, and they don't think about me as much. They'll be thinking about other things, whatever's in front of their face, and I just wasn't there. You know, I was back in New York and I was touring, and I wasn't around as much, so they weren't thinking about me as much. And I think that's just how things work. If you're visible, then you'll get cast in things, and if you're invisible, you won't get cast. But I've always been friends with Dave, always texting him back and forth about whatever phase of life I'm in, whether it's getting married or having a kid or whatever it is. And so we were always talking. But, as time went on, and he became more focused on Your Pretty Face, which I was in that pilot as well, I think that it just was happening less and less. I think that has a lot to do with me leaving Atlanta. Had I stayed in Atlanta or stayed at Cartoon Network, I probably would have been in a lot more stuff, and a lot of different things would have happened to me. But I wouldn't have been able to have been MC Chris and affect all the people that I've affected in that way. And that's been really rewarding for me as well as the television shows. So what c'est la vie, as they say. What will be will be, and that's kind of just what happened. It's all good. The good news is that when I did the new short for YouTube, it was just like no time had passed. It was just like getting back on a bicycle, and I really felt like we did a great job and we made a great little short, and I'm ready for more whenever they are.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, MCP Pants is a character I could definitely see coming back constantly. Because I mean, the joke was always, he came back, he did a new song, and then it was just some other con for some crazy convoluted scheme. And I think that would be something that really wouldn't get old. Now, is there ever any points where I assume that people that come up to you and recognize you, some of them recognize you specifically from your roles on Aqua Teen. Now, is there ever a point where you kind of feel like you wish that they had, that there wasn't as much of an overshadow from Aqua Teen, or is it something that you've sort of embraced?
I embrace it. I think, I'm happy that I connected with everybody in some way. And, most people know my one song about Boba Fett. And, I'm glad there's this one song where, like, do you get sick of rapping this song? I'm like, no, because the whole audience knows it. And we sing it together, and that's kind of like its best version when we're doing it together. And people shout my lines from the cartoons every night to me on stage. And, like I said to you before, I'm just glad I connected in some way with everybody. And I think I did it at a very important time, because Adult Swim premiered like 1 week before 9/11. It started on my birthday on September 2nd, 2001. And, I think because of what everybody went through during that time, Adult Swim was this kind of like respite. It was a way for everyone to escape what was happening to them at the time. And I think because of that, the connection is so much stronger than it might be with a show that comes out today or something new that might show up today, whereas Adult Swim is kind of adult cartoons is kind of like a dime a dozen. They're on every channel, it's everywhere. It's kind of changed the world, changed at least the programming world, and it's part of everybody's every channel's lineup. Whereas back in the day, 20 years ago, there was nothing like it, and it was revolutionary, and it showed up just the right time when everybody needed to truly escape reality and enter surreality. And so, I think because of that, there's a really strong bond that just doesn't go away. And people come up to me and they say, I've been listening to you since I was a little kid, or since I was 10, or since I was 15. And they're grown men now, or women. And I think that's not something that you get with other cartoons or with other blocks of programming. Maybe in 20 years from now, that'll be happening with shows that come out now. But I think there's something special about the time period that I was introduced in, and the time period that I connected with fans. And I think there's something special that happened there, and that's why the bond is so strong, and why people come to these shows over and over again and keep on supporting me.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're talking about. It did come out at what some might say could possibly be the worst time for it to launch because of its timing. But really, it was an escape. It was a way for people to just sort of enjoy the surreality of and the absurdity of what it had to offer because there was really nothing else like it on during that time. And yeah, I mean, first of all, I had no idea that your birthday fell on the day that it launched. Do you see that as sort of like a sign of fate or destiny, or is it just something you're like, oh, what a coincidence?
Oh, well, no, I know that that night I met George Lowe for the first time, and I chased him down a hallway because I was a Space Ghost fan. Because we were at like a party watching the shows, watching the premiere of the shows, and I had never been on TV before, and so it was a really exciting night for me, but it was a very special night for me because I got to meet George Lowe, someone who I'm friends with now. But I was blown away to be a part of just to be working at Cartoon Network in general because I had always drawn cartoons my whole childhood, and I kind of put it away and focused more on screenwriting in college and didn't focus on animation. So it was very weird that I ended up in animation. And it was a perfect place for me to be, especially what they were doing and how they were going about it. It was a perfect fit. And they ended up using me and all the different things I could do, on several different shows. And so it was definitely a match made in heaven. Uh, I had no idea though how big it would become. I mean, in the beginning, nobody watched, and it wasn't until Futurama and Family Guy showed up that everything kind of blew up.
Yeah, that's really when the whole thing kind of like blew into this bigger, it was always this niche group. But then when those syndicated shows from Fox showed up, that's when it sort of blew up into this phenomena of sorts. And that's
Yeah,
when a lot of other people got introduced to the originals that it had to offer, like Aqua Teen, Sea Lab, Space Ghost.
yeah.
So going back to your tour for a second, it seems like the last day of your tour is August 13th, and you're going to be back in LA, where you said you're from,
Yes,
right?
yes. Oh,
Is
well,
there a...
no, that's where I live currently. I'm originally from Chicagoland, from Libertyville, Illinois.
Oh, right, yes. Um, is there anything you have planned special for this last day of tentatively the last tour?
Um, well, there's a brother, You Can't Call Me Out, which is Jonah. Uh, Jonah has this from MSC3K has this band that plays Weird Al covers, and so he'll be opening. And I have a hunch that some other cool things might appear at that show, but it'll be like a celebration, and I'm very excited about it. Uh, you know, I'm not quite sure if it'll be the last show of the last. It's the last show of this tour, but I'll be appearing at Dragon Con in Atlanta in 2 weeks, and um, I always get offers to do more shows, so I don't know if it'll necessarily be the last show ever. But we did a show in Anaheim, and it had a great amount of people come, and uh, I think if that's any indication of how this LA show will do, I think it'll be a very awesome packed show, and I'll be very happy to double dip and get to play again in my home city, and I'm very excited for this show.
That's great. That's awesome to hear. Um, thank you very much for taking the time every day to speak with me. I
My pleasure.
Is there anything else that you wanted to mention before we head off?
Well, I'm working on a Marvel themed album called King in Black, which will hopefully come out by the end of the year, and we'll see how that goes. I made a cartoon called the MC Chris cartoon that you can watch the pilot of on YouTube, and I made that about 10 years ago. And when I get home from this tour, I'm going to write that again and start pitching that in LA. So I'm very excited to do that and take one more stab at this concept and see if I can't get any takers. I haven't pitched it again since I originally pitched it to Adult Swim. It was optioned by Fuse for a year, and then they got cold feet. And since then, I've learned a lot about animation and screenwriting and animated television. And, I'm excited to recap on it, and I've been thinking for a long time. So I'm excited to do that once I get home. And we'll just have to see what happens.
I wish you the best of luck of that. I've seen bits and pieces of that pilot from online, and I gotta say, I'm a fan of what I had to see. You can still get tickets to Chris's tour on his website and third parties. All of his albums are for sale on iTunes and other third party websites as well. Watch Aquadonk Side Pieces. All the episodes are on YouTube, including MC Chris's brand return as MCP Pants. You can watch Aqua Teen Hunger Force all on HBO Max, except the movie. And I want to thank Chris very much for joining me today. And I wish him the best of luck with the rest of his tour.